Good night, ladies and gentlemen. It is good to be here, but I didn't expect to be here as we begin to celebrate the Christmas season. That is the truth. But in life, you have to do what you have to do. And I am conscious tonight that there are some who are at Ilara Court with carols by candlelight, and there are some who are at the David Thompson finals playing football. And it only serves to remind me that it is now 6 years that Thompson has passed to somewhere else. And in those 6 years, rather than seeing the opportunity to be able to build up this country, we have a Prime Minister who has carried us down further and further and further. And when I met many of you at the annual conference last month before, I asked you to remember the words of Erskine Sandiford as we were coming up to celebrate our 50th anniversary. How did we get here? And you know, even as I spent time just now waiting and hearing Dale Marshall, Dale, you need a long day all the time because you bat your hand like a batsman that was in for 300 today. And Kerry, there is no finer platform speaker in Barbados than Kerry Simmons. Listening to Kerry Simmons on a platform is like watching Brian Lara on a cricket field. And I'm going to come to the others in Christchurch especially later. But I wanted you to recognize that I walked around that building with Clyde. And I'll come to it because some of you can walk it later at the end of this meeting. And the smells started to give me a headache for the 20 or 25 minutes that I stood up around there. So that when we come to Top Rock, it is not by accident tonight, because we have a duty to empathize and to understand what people have had to endure in this country. And you saw the video earlier with Kerry and Dwight and Wilfred and others as we went to Worthing and Adrian. I can come to him later, a special word for him. But you saw it. You saw us go to the people in White Hill, because we believe that you cannot stand in town, in Parliament, and talk down to people. So we have come to Top Rock tonight to survey what is happening in Barbados. And every day this week, we have seen headline after headline after headline after headline jolt us into Sandiford's question: how did we get here? Whether it is the industrial relations, the fact that people had to wait at the airport to get in, coming in for independence, and all of a sudden we hear the Prime Minister meets and agrees to pay the head of the union, Akani, that which he was fighting for all along. But he couldn't meet 3-4 weeks ago. But the people had to go through that pain in the airport, and Barbados' name became smeared. We had people in this country lining up for buses for 4, 5, and 6 hours this week, all because the transport board is down to less than 80 buses. We had the horror of the dialysis unit not being able to deliver treatment to people. And this is not a laughing matter, because these very same people, if they can't get the liquids off of their body, their life is at risk. And of course we had the sewage. There is no one from this government who has taken any of these problems seriously in this country. And there has been no determination to solve any of them. Their only interest is to douse some water upon the flames so that the flames go down. But the fire is still there. The problems still remain because their interest, my friends, is about political optics and nothing more. But our interest is also about optics. The optics of sewage in the streets of Barbados. The optics of people driving along, not intending to hurt a passenger, a pedestrian, but with all the rain, the car goes through. It's bad enough that they splatter up people, but then the person finds out that they've been splattered with sewage. What kind of country are we living in today? And you know, when we came to Worthing this week, the residents, the business owners, and Kerry spoke to you about the plight of the business owners. When you have a man of the character and caliber and age of M.E.R. Bourne, 84 years old, and he says he has never seen it like this, and he describes the fish that died in the pond by Big B. And what do we have from a government? A complete ignoring, wanting to rewrite what they saw. TripAdvisor. And you know what hurts me? That the only time they saw it fit to respond was when the news of TripAdvisor and the tourists came on that website. Because it didn't have to be so. When they closed the beach on Saturday at Worthing, they botched that up too. Because if you close a beach, you would expect signs to go up, warning people. You know, when the signs went up, the beach was closed about midday Saturday. Ask Kerry. The signs went up when we got to Worthing Beach, when they heard we were coming at 4:30 on Monday afternoon. 48 hours later, running the risk of people going into that water. And what do you have? Anybody who goes overseas don't listen to the radio or TV if you're on vacation regular. They don't. And those signs are to protect people. But instead, what do we get when we go up there? Parliament met twice this week. Not one day did the Prime Minister address the people of this country and explain what his government would do to put in place to solve this problem. What we had instead was Thursday morning before Cabinet. 2 men turn up. They clearly had watched Dennis Kelman's video on Facebook because they followed Dennis Kelman's abracadabra example. Kelly, bareback, and with a gold chain in a bathroom. Dale says to the people of St. Joseph and St. Peter and St. Lucy, watch this. I can drink this clear water. Abracadabra, matter fix. So Richard Seeley and John Boyce, wanting to get in on the abracadabra moment, said, watch this. Now, I ain't see them going in the sea. Kerry, I ain't see them swim. I see 2 men, one in a brand name t-shirt and brand name shades, posing. An act of vandalism on the beach, pulling up a sign that he didn't put up. And what does he expect? Look at us. We are here. This is safe. Abracadabra, matter fix. But you see, Seeley's abracadabra was only bought for 24 hours. Because by the next night, in Big B car park, sewage was coming up again. By the Friday morning, Wilfred Abrams will show you the photographs that were sent to him with the sea brown again. And therefore, if you are a serious country and a serious government, these abracadabra moments of political optics cannot be part and parcel of how this country is to be governed. But I want you to listen to me very carefully, because you know I didn't come here without wanting to talk to you and talk to the people of this country. Because 1 year ago, and thank you for your comments, Kerry, at Adrian Ford's nomination, I warned the Prime Minister about the non-functioning of the South Coast Sewage plant. And I told the Prime Minister then that I was not going to get into the details of it, but that he had, as a matter of urgency, to intervene, because I do not assume that a Prime Minister knows everything that is going on in a government, even though he should. The Prime Minister made his mock sport at me. Well, my back broad. My back broad. But 14 months later, what do we have? And it didn't start, John Boyce, with the rainfall on the 29th of November. I have news stories here, and you all can go back and check them yourself. Full of news stories. From as early as the 4th of November, the Nation newspaper was taking comments from Sir Alan Fields and others about sewage being seen all along the South Coast. They were ignored. We have stories the following week. They were ignored. There was no deluge of rain at that point. And for those like Peter Jilks, whose only privilege in life is to climb up chocolate channels, it wasn't no storm water or brackish water. I want to speak to Dr. Mwanza too, because for Dr. Mwanza to come and say, nobody didn't ask him whose fault it was. Nobody didn't ask him who put the hands in the cookie jar. We will come to who put the hands in the cookie jar. But what they asked him was for relief. They wanted relief. And instead, the social partners and others were told by John Boyce and John Mwanza that these are leaves from the Graham Hall swamp breaking into the water, and the tannin of the leaves make the water brown. Well, I don't ever speak without the facts. And I simply have to ask John Boyce, what does his instrument give him responsibility for, if not the Ministry of Health? And I want him to go in the office tomorrow and ask them for the memorandum by Patricia Innes, a lady who ran against me twice. And I must tell you, she may be no politician, but she clearly is a better technician than politician. And in fairness, I will say she has discharged her duty. She really has. On May 11th, 2015, Patricia Innes writes these words, that on May 11th, 2015, a letter from the Ministry of Health to the Barbados Water Authority stated that sewage was contaminating the Graham Hall swamp. John Boyce's own ministry stated that the sewage was contaminating the swamp. But you now, for political purposes, will want to come and make people feel that they're foolish. Richard Seeley said that the beach should not have been closed. That's what he said on the beach. But I want Richard Seeley to tell the country what the public health test showed on a Monday last week with respect to the water that was sampled and whether the test for the water closest to the sluice gate could have been read or if it was off the charts. Now, let us get real. Sun and seawater will clean things. We know that. But do not try to fool people and make people look like idiots. Because if I were to say to you here tonight, and when I mentioned this to Frondel last year, the Prime Minister, in October 2015, I told him what Patinus had said in her letter, and she said that 90% of the sewage entering the plant is now being diverted from the influent pumps to the effluent. In other words, instead of going into the inflow pumps, into the plant, they're going straight to the outflow pumps into the water. Not necessarily the canal by Worthing, but the outflow pipes that we have out by Needham's Point. And I need to break this down for you for 2 minutes. The South Coast plant is a primary treatment plant. It is intended simply to separate the solids from the liquids. And when you take out the solids, the toilet paper, the garbage, the sanitary products for women, all them kinds of things, you're supposed to bag it and they carry them up to Spencer's plantation in Christchurch. If I were to tell you the rest of the liquid is deodorized in the plant at the lift stations along the way, so people don't smell like what we're smelling behind there, and it goes into an outflow pipe that goes 1 to 2 kilometers out to sea, 150 feet down, and you have at Needham's Point 18 diffusers. In other words, 18 points which the water along that pipeline is put into the ocean so that there is no concentration of the effluent in any one place. Would you believe that your government has presided over a situation where next month, January 2017, will mark 3 full years that the South Coast Sewage Treatment Plant has not worked? That plant has not worked at all for 3 years. And what has been happening is that the sewage is coming into the pipes, going into the in-well, the influent well. They have another pump, not in the plant, but a pump that pumps everything into the effluent well, and everything then goes down the pipes to go in the sea. So what has happened? It is too sad. You have 18 diffusers. 10 of the diffusers in the water fully blocked. 6 of the diffusers partially blocked. And only 2 are functioning. And Bridgetown Sewage Plant, the diffusers there too, the 16, only 2 of the 16 are functioning for the Bridgetown Sewage Treatment Plant. This government has to do better by its people than this. And you know, this has more to do with poor choices, as Ryan Strawn told you. Because this government was given a chance. I want you to listen carefully. In July of 2014, 6 months after the sewage treatment plant stopped working, they had a proposal from the Chinese government. Indicative terms and conditions, first given on the 24th of July to the Barbados Water Authority from the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, followed up by the final term sheet, the 6th of August 2014, valid for 12 months. valid until the 6th of August 2015, one of the biggest banks in China, to lend them almost 200 and something million dollars, 85% of the cost for the building of a West Coast sewage plant, a Bridgetown upgrade, and a South Coast sewage treatment upgrade for the plant here. But you know what happened? What happened? Serenada, our friend, would say that there was not enough steel in there. In my case, I would say no, Seri, there was not enough fat in there. Because the government of Barbados had to make choices between building Sam Lord's Castle, a tourism investment that ought to be done by the private sector, because if the numbers are good, as they should be for a hotel, the private sector should be prepared to invest in Sam Lord's Castle. And the second project was jet bridges. But you see, there was not enough fat in there. And what has happened to us is that the principle of smart borrowing, as Clyde would tell you, where you borrow for serious social infrastructural projects that can come to affect from your public health to your competitiveness as a nation, was put on the back burner. Do you know that the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China has never received a response from the Ministry of Finance in relation to that term sheet for the sewage treatment plants of Barbados? Do you understand that our Ministry of Finance did not respond? And where we find ourselves 2.5 years later, after the offer at concessional funding, 3.5% above LIBOR, in other words, 4% money, is that instead you went and built one hotel but put the whole tourism industry at risk in this country. You went and built one hotel, you intend to build a hotel, because all Sam Lords has had is 2 groundbreakings and some buildings knocked down. And you put instead the public health and the well-being of the citizens of this country at risk. It is a shame, it is a scandal, and we must deal with it. But it doesn't stop there. Ask yourself why you smell. The people in Harmony Hall and the people in Worthing Beach, Ms. Burr, others have been complaining about these smells for a while. That rotten egg smell, Jerome, William, Adrian will tell you, is hydrogen sulfide. And hydrogen sulfide, if concentrated in a closed area, is not good for people. It means that the workers at that treatment plant need to be protected. And I ask this government, in the last 3 years that this treatment plant has not worked, what have you done to protect the workers at the South Coast Sewage Treatment Plant? What have you done to protect the residents in Harmony Hall? This is a serious situation in this country. And when we look at what is broken, almost every possible thing in that plant is broken. The pumps are broken. The odor control units, not just in the plant, but in the lift stations along the South Coast, are not working. The non-return valves, which is supposed to stop the backflow of sewage, is not working. Pumps and pumping stations like River Road, not working. I told you just now about the diffusers. And I am told that there was a man called Hannah who used to dive and clean those diffusers, and the man died 7 years ago. Who has been maintaining those diffusers since then? Who? And coral doesn't only grow, Kerry, you're a diver. Coral doesn't only grow in one direction. So when you say that the diffusers are blocked, is the coral blocking it? And therefore, it is no wonder that the Friday before independence, by the garrison, sewage start coming out there, because water will find the weakest points through which to extract itself, whether it is the manholes, whether it is the canals, or the one there by the sluice gate. But they need to also report to the people, not just about the South Coast sewage treatment plant, but about the Bridgetown sewage treatment plant. Many of you may not remember there was a fire in the Bridgetown sewage treatment plant in 2013. You remember? And a number of things stopped working, including the chloropat unit. What is that? 'Cause I really didn't do science at school for too long. I had to go and have people advise me. And that is why I know that there's a worthlessness on the part of these ministers, because nobody expects them to be experts, but we expect them to be advised. And I was prepared to be advised locally and internationally on what is required to put this country on a stable path in terms of our public health. That chloropat unit uses electrolysis to extract chlorine from seawater, so that you can literally, if it is working well, reduce the fecal coliforms. Kerry would have another word for it that he used many times in his speech tonight, beginning with J. But it helps reduce that content in the water. And I say to you tonight, what is it that must now be required?